Hi guys, I hope you are all well. Hopefully this lesson is pretty self-explanatory. We are going to go over glossary of some key terms for the changing places topic, which is all about the growth of cities, urbanization around the world, and reasons for that and consequences of that, and also migration within countries and globally as well. Okay, so today we are on page one, glossary. Okay, I'm going to go through the key terms. Hopefully, it will be pretty self-explanatory for most of them. Okay, I want you to write down the definition, and you can add in an image as well if you like to help you remember what the key term means. So let's open this up. So I've already written in, as maybe you've seen, I've already written in the key term for you, so you just have to start writing in the definition. All right, so, okay, so migration. So migration is the movement of people from one place to another. Okay, permanent or semi-permanent, yeah? So when you go on holiday, you're not migrating. The reasons for migration can be economic, so looking for a job. They may be social, so maybe looking for more freedom. They can be political, or they can be environmental, to get away from the natural disasters. There's usually push factors and pull factors at work behind migration movements, and we need to understand what push factors and pull factors mean. So on the most basic level, push factor, it tends to be negative and it motivates people to migrate away from an area. So pushing you away from an area, making you want to leave. Okay. And then on the opposing side, you've got the pull factors. So something or a range of factors that attracts people to go and live in a particular place. Okay, so for example, maybe there's no jobs in the area where you're from, so maybe a small rural town, you can't find a job, so that's pushing you away from that small town. And then maybe you're pulled into a major city because there's lots of employment opportunities there. Okay. All right, rural urban migration. So that is the movement of people from the countryside to the city. Make sure you understand rural means the countryside and urban towns and cities. You've got to feel confident with those two words, not getting them mixed up. Okay, if you don't feel confident with them yet, maybe add a couple of rows into your glossary, stick an image in there to help you. So I guess the word that's not there is rural to urban migration. Okay, and that is a worldwide phenomenon, as we will see in the next couple of lessons. Okay, urbanization, so very much linked to that. That's a process of an area becoming more urban. So towns and cities growing, basically. Okay, and the increase in the proportion of people living in towns and cities, making the world more urbanized. You will, if you're on an American website, you'll see Z here. Try and use S because that's how we write it in Australia. Okay, infrastructure. Okay, this is linked to urbanization. Okay, basically, infrastructure refers to the facilities and the systems that allow an area to basically work, that allow society to continue from day to day. So that includes many things. That can be transportation, so public transport, roads, communication systems, so access to the internet. So that involves obviously we're just used to being able to log on to the internet and use it. Well, there's a whole lot of infrastructure behind that that allows you to access the internet. And power plants, schools, hospitals, basically anything. So when you turn on a light switch, okay, the only reason that that achieves anything is because of the infrastructure that behind it, the electric cables that have been laid, for example. Okay, and with growing urbanization, many different people have to play a role in making sure that the infrastructure is there as the city grows. Okay, so as cities grow, okay, again, linked to that, you have to plan. Okay, So urban consolidation, okay, refers to a diverse set of planning policies, okay, basically with the aim of making better use of existing urban infrastructure by encouraging development within an existing urbanized area rather than on non-urbanized land, thus limiting urban sprawl, which we'll look at yet. So basically it's saying this is the area of the city at the moment, and we don't want the city to spread out too much more. Okay, so urban consolidation tends to therefore see lots of high-rise buildings, okay, because you're growing upwards so that you're not taking up more space on the ground, but you can still allow the city to grow. Sydney is in a continual process of urban consolidation. So nowadays, if you were to build new housing near the centre of Sydney, you're almost definitely not going to be building a house. Instead, you're going to be building a block of apartments because it takes up the same space as a couple of houses but fits a lot more people in. It's a little bit more complicated than that, but at its most basic level, you can think about urban consolidation of growing the city upwards. The opposite of that then is urban sprawl, which is something that you want to try to avoid, and it kind of reflects a lack of planning. So, urban sprawl is the unrestricted growth of housing, commercial development, roads, basically of towns and cities across and over large expanses of land. So, with little concern for urban planning. So, that's just allowing the city to grow outwards rather than upwards. So, that's obviously eating into the natural environment, and it makes for a very large city that, for example, would perhaps have a lot of transport problems because people have to travel further to get to work, to get to school. Okay, so that tends to be something that people want to avoid nowadays, which is why we have urban planning. Okay, shanty towns. All right, I guess this is an example of urban sprawl. Okay, they are slums, okay, on the outskirts of many cities, especially in developing countries. Nowadays, we don't tend to have slums, as it were, in developed countries, though, of course, there are areas of cities that are poorer than others. Okay, so this happens as a result of rural urban migration. We're going to look at a few case studies of this. But it's people moving to cities with hope of a better life, but they get there, okay, and there's no infrastructure in place, so they start building their own houses. So they're often not connected to infrastructure, so might not have electricity, might not have running water, and houses are badly built out of whatever materials are around: plywood, corrugated metal, sheets of plastic. Okay, not a very nice place to live, and lots of poverty in these shanty towns. Okay, sustainability. So I'm sure this is something you've come across in geography before. So it's the ability to continue doing something indefinitely, so forever, indefinitely, for as long as possible. So an example of the growth of cities, of urbanization, okay, it's thinking about how do we grow cities in a way that the natural environment isn't destroyed, for example. Okay, or in a way where the humans that are living in a particular city have access to education and all have access to healthcare. Okay, doing it in a sustainable way so that things don't start collapsing, basically. Livability. Okay, this is going back to year 7. Okay, it will come up again in this topic. So that's some of the factors that add up to a community's quality of life. Okay, hopefully you kind of remember that from year 7. It includes a lot of factors like economic prosperity, so it's there jobs for you to do, social stability, is there a lack of crime, educational opportunity, entertainment and recreation possibilities, multiple things. Okay, so as the world's becoming more urbanized, okay, this is linked to sustainability, it's linked to urban planning. How do we ensure that these growing cities are livable? Okay, so migration, okay, global migration. So this is the movement of people on a global scale between countries. So moving from one country to another. Okay, there's certain patterns that we'll see with regards to that, and in fact, I'll talk through this diagram in a second. Global events, okay, can lead to big migration crises. So, for example, the Syrian civil war led to, or still has led to a big migration crisis in the Middle East and Europe, and push and pull factors come into play here. So here's a diagram of global migration flows. So you've got 112 million people moving from developing countries, so poorer countries, to developed countries. And then any other way, you've got 19 million people going from developed to developing. Well, it's probably no surprise that more people want to move in this direction than that direction. Okay. Um, Within the developing world, you've got 98 million people moving within developing countries. So, for example, maybe moving from, I don't know, Bolivia to Peru within South America, for example. And then developed countries, you've got 38 million people moving within the developed world. So, for example, if you were to move to New Zealand or to the UK, you're moving from one developed country to another. Okay, again, that's smaller than this number. Okay. Right, internal migration then. Internal migration is the movement of people from one area to another within a country. Again, due to various push and pull factors. So if your family was to move to Melbourne, that's internal migration. Okay, that's just a diagram there showing you internal migration in USA. Interestingly, you've got lots of people moving from northern cities down to the south. Okay, land use. So that is land use in this context refers to the various ways humans use land, e.g. farming, housing, recreation. Hopefully you can make the connection to urbanization there. Okay, when we are planning the future of cities, we need to think about different uses of land within the cities, but also on the outskirts of the cities. Okay, last two here then. Okay, these two are sometimes used interchangeably, but they are different. Okay, so you've got migrant. Okay, that is a person who moves from one place to another, especially in order to find work or better living conditions, and it tends to be out of choice. Okay, so people tend to choose to migrate, although you can argue that if conditions are awful where you are coming from, then it's not much of a choice. Okay, opposed to that, a refugee, okay, that's an actual international legal status. Okay, that is a person who has been forced to leave their country in order to escape war, persecution, or natural disaster. Okay, so those are some key terms. Obviously, we will have more key terms as we go through. That's just a starting basis. So make sure you've written the definition in here and go and add an image in to help you remember anything you need to. Once you've done that, guys, what I want you to do is to choose 5 key terms from up here, okay, and put them in a sentence, okay. I'll change that before I send it to you guys because that should say changing places because that's our topic. Okay, basically I'm just asking you to try and use one of those 5 of those key terms in context. So you're not just defining it, you're using it in a way that shows you've understood it. So for example, infrastructure. Okay, there have been recent attempts by the government to cater for Sydney's growing population by funding projects aimed at upgrading transport infrastructure. It doesn't need to be something specific like that. You might want to say, you might want to give an example of a push factor, for example. So you might put in here push factor. Okay, so you might say the Syrian war has been a push factor driving hundreds of thousands of people out of the country. Okay, have a go at that. All right, don't worry if it's wrong, but I want to be able to see your understanding. Okay, so it will obviously help me when we're back in school. If there's been any misunderstandings, I should be able to pick up on that based off, yeah, your sentences here. Okay, there's 3 more lessons this week. I'll put a video up for each one. By all means, if you want to jump ahead and have a look at them in your own time, be my guest, okay, and ask any questions on Zoom. But yeah, all right, great work, guys. Thanks. Bye.